We want to hear from you. If you have financial questions, suggestions for guests, or would like to share your money memoir, hit us up at podcast@worth-listening.com. That's podcast@worth-listening.com. All right, let's get to it. Welcome to the Worth Listening podcast, where we focus on having positive and productive conversations around money. I'm your host, Lauren, a 4-time Olympian and certified financial planner. On this show, my guests share their money stories. Everyone has a unique story and experiences both wins and losses when it comes to money. My intent is to give listeners something they can relate to, something that builds their courage to be open and take control of their own money story. When I'm not creating a great show for my listeners, I'm running my company, Worth Winning, where I help individuals and families organize their finances. Check us out at worth-winning.com. All right, now on with the show. Today, I'm excited to have Jamila Souffrant here to share her money memoir with us. Jamila is the founder of the Journey to Launch blog and podcast, where she shares what she's doing to reach her goal of being financially independent by age 40. I mean, have you ever asked yourself, why do I have to wait until I'm 65 to start living the life that I want? Well, with a proper plan and savings, you don't. Jamila is still working, but she has been saving and investing over $80,000 a year. Today, we talk about all kinds of good stuff, from keeping your expenses low as a mother of 3 to how she purchased her first property right out of college, and the advice that she has for listeners who are currently living paycheck to paycheck but want to make a change. Jamila has a ton of information to share with us, regardless of where you are on your financial journey. Let's listen to Jamila share her money memoir. Guys, get ready. Today is going to be a really good episode. I am so shocked and amazed at all I've learned about Jamila since I've met her. Thanks for being on the show.
Hi, Lauren. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I am so glad to have you here today. So let's start by just going backwards and telling people a little bit about who you are, because I've read a lot about you. I know all about you, but the listeners don't know so much about you. So where are you from? Where you live now? And talking about like where you're from and how you grew up, could you kind of explain to us what your first memory of money was?
Sure. So I am Jamila Souffrant of the blog and podcast and personal finance platform Journey to Launch, which is about launching to financial independence. I'm sharing my journey to launch and I'm helping others do the same. And my backstory is I came here from Jamaica at the age of 2. So my mom had me, single mom, had me at 20 years old. And she actually came to the States. So she came to New York first. She had to leave me behind with my grandmother to settle herself here and to figure out how to bring me over and what she was bringing me over to. So as a mom myself now, I can't imagine having to have left me at such a young age for 2 years. But she did, because she knew that that would be the better option in life that she could provide for me. And I came here when I was 2. And as a result of watching my mom and my grandmom work so hard to provide a life for themselves and for me, it really instilled into me a really good work ethic. So we didn't have much growing up, and I saw her work really hard as a single mom. So she worked full time, and then she went to school, and she also had part-time jobs to be able to provide for me. And just seeing that growing up really just made an imprint for me of how much money matters. So, and more importantly, how much the lack of money matters. So when you don't have it, all the stress that causes and the opportunities that are lost because you don't have the income. And so when I was 14, as soon as I was able to get a job, like I got my first job and I've been working ever since, and went to college, got a degree in business management. Throughout that time in college, I interned at a pretty good company through the company called Inroads. So it was a nonprofit that helped place minorities into Fortune 500 companies. And so I was lucky enough to have applied and got in. And so from my freshman year in college, I was working every summer, every winter break, as much as I could because they were paying me, which was great. And I was able to really save 90% of my check throughout my whole college working career, if you would say. So that by the time I graduated, I had a good amount of savings and I was able to buy my first property in Brooklyn, in New York, Dumbo. So that stands for down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass. I feel like that was my first big financial decision, buying a property at 22. And it was my best financial decision to date. And I always talk about it in my content because I really feel like it put me on a great starting point with money. So even though I was a saver for the most part and I made that great financial decision for a lot of my 20s, I wasn't as conscious about money. Like I would save, but I didn't really have a bigger goal because in my head, I wanted to just quit my job by the time I was 30 years old, work for myself because I hated having a boss. I hated having to answer to anyone. So I had these big dreams. And then, of course, like many people, life kind of gets in the way. And I started to make more money, get used to the lifestyle. And I really couldn't figure out how it was that I'd be able to quit my job after 30 and do what I want. I couldn't figure that out because I thought I had to create some huge company or be some successful businesswoman. And it wasn't until actually I was around 31, pregnant with my first son, and I have a crazy commute. So I was stuck in this commute that typically takes like an hour and a half. That day, it took me 4 hours to get home. And as you can imagine, Lauren, that was so stressful being pregnant. And I said to myself, what are you doing? You don't want to be in this life, especially bringing kids into the world. You want to have more opportunities. You want to be able to spend more time with them. So what can you do to not be in this situation? So had a breakdown in the car, had a breakdown when I went to my husband. And it was through that epiphany moment, that process, that I started to look into more ways in which I could break free of this rat race. And I came across this idea of financial independence, whereas you save and invest as much money as you can aggressively, and you reach a point where you no longer have to work. You can retire early, quote unquote. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. So I started listening to podcasts and reading blogs about it and told my husband, there should be a way we can figure it out to do something, right? Why do we have to wait until we're like 65 to live the lives we want to live? How can we do that sooner rather than later? And because of that, that's what prompted me to start my blog, which turned into the podcast. And then I'm just like a champion for this, everyone being on the financial independence path, because I really do believe it's something that we all want. We just all want options. We all want to be in control of our time and how we make money. So I think for me, this is like my passion that I'm so excited to talk about with other people.
Wow, what a woman. She just told her whole life story in 5 minutes, y'all. Okay, the podcast's over. Everybody go home. Just kidding. No, you unpacked a whole bunch of information in a super short period of time. So let's go back a little bit and let's start first. One of the things that stood out to me that you said was your mom coming over from Jamaica, leaving you there and wanting to make sure that there was something here that was going to be better than what she was leaving you behind in Jamaica. So can you just talk about that idea of people coming to America to see this American dream and get this American dream, and why are people from other countries coming to America and leaving there and setting up shop here looking for that better life? Like, what does it mean and how is it different? And like, what did that look like for your family?
Sure. So, I mean, I believe most people from the Caribbean and anywhere across the world, like you see America as this land of opportunities. And I do believe that it is. I think this is a place where you can make something out of nothing. And for many people that live in third world countries and islands that don't have as much support from their government and opportunities for people to become their own business people or to rise in the ranks in companies, I think this presents a wonderful opportunity. But it also really depends and matters on how hard you're willing to work in this dream. So I don't think you can't just come here and then think things will be handed to you. And so I saw that firsthand, because what I would say is that mostly, especially as a woman, having my mom and grandmother come over here, especially my grandmother and older women who come here without their education, a lot of them end up being nannies or cleaning homes or doing the type of labor that maybe some people who were born here don't want to do. I saw my grandmother, or I would say I saw my grandmother, my mother saw my grandmother working, taking care of kids in the city. And one of the things she recognized that these wealthy people, these higher class people were doing was they were reading to their kids every night. So they would ask my grandmother to read to their kids every night. And so while my mom didn't have much money, she heard my grandmother having to do this. And she said, oh, well, if these rich people are doing this for their kids, then they must be onto something. So that's one thing she started doing with me very early on, is reading to me every night, taking me to the library. So it just shows you, while there's like a lot of haves and have-nots in America, I think some things are more accessible. So like books and free programs like the library are here. And it's really like if someone takes it upon themselves and gets that initiative and acts on that impulse, that you can then further yourself here without necessarily having a lot. And so being able to see my grandmother working as someone who watched kids to be able to own her own house eventually, and then watching my mom work those lower income jobs, fast food jobs, going to school. And then she eventually got her degree, got her master's education to where she now earns a good living, shows you the potential if you put the work into it. And so for me growing up and seeing that, I'm like, wow, if my grandmother and mom, who didn't have a great start here, can do that, I surely can do a lot more. And so that's my mission. Is like, I know I could do more and I will do more. And it's like, I expect that from my kids now. So I'm passing the baton. So I know you're a sports lady, so you get this, but I feel like passing the baton, like we can give people who are coming up behind us a head start. So our generations to come by building this pyramid. And that's kind of like what I'm doing now with my kids.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point about resources too, about not having money is about, but the lack of money is like, and this speaks to maybe there not being a lot of money, but there being resources, and you keeping your eyes open all the time for the resources that are available to you. So your grandma going into that household to read, she wasn't making the income that household that she was working for was, but she was like, what can I learn from the examples around me? Oh, these people are reading. That's a resource that's available to me. I can go to the library, and this is something that I wasn't doing that I can do. Like, this is something that could lead to wealth. And so to really be able to think outside the box as to, wealth not being dollars and cents, but the things that you do that actually end up creating dollars and cents, or creating intelligence, which further creates dollars and cents, is something that I think people who feel like they don't have a lot of resources can tap into and really tune into. There's so many examples. You could just look around of people that are not doing well or people that are doing well. And it's like, okay, I can use these things as motivation to take me to that next level. And that's what you really need to be able to do to create this wealth and to be able to create financial independence. So I really love that story that you just told.
Right. Because there's a lot of soft skills that lead and attribute someone to being successful, quote unquote. So it's not necessarily the just money. Like, how do you get to be able to have a point where you're able to generate money? You have to have a skill set. You have to be resourceful. So it also reminds me of the quote, it's better to be resourceful than to have resources. And so if you can learn how to be adaptable, scrappy, and a go-getter, there's so much out there in the world for you. So yeah, totally agree with everything you just said.
I love that. Better to be resourceful than to have resources. Yeah. Okay, so then you talked about in college, like you said, kind of like being a natural born saver, having this example of these two strong women working really hard, and you kind of had that naturally kind of ingrained in you, and ended up at a Fortune 500 college. So what kind of principles did you use at college? Because that's a time period where it's like, oh, I'm a grown up, I'm 18, but truly we're generally not grown ups like mentally or maturity wise. So what kind of habits did you have that helped you be able to save money during college, when most people are like, oh, I'm on this college struggle, I'm not making that much, I definitely need to spend everything I'm making? What prompted you to say, like, this is worth it? And what kind of conversations were your friends having about money at that time?
So when I went to college, I still had that strong work ethic. So while I was working in the summer during this internship, I also had the on-campus summer jobs. And so anything I needed for money during the school year, I usually use my money from my on-campus jobs for. But then when it came to like the money and the checks from my internship, I was like, I'm making way more than probably like the average college student because of this internship. So I don't necessarily need to spend more now because I'm making more. Like, I did buy one expensive thing, a Movado watch, when that was in, when I was in college. That was like my biggest purchase when I was like 19 or 20. I remember I even had to make payments on it. So that's probably the one thing I did because I was earning a little bit more. But if I could just go back, it really just came back down to that intrinsic drive to be prepared for anything, and watching my family, my mom, work so hard for me. So it's not that I never spent money. I did, but I used my money from my other jobs to kind of pay for if I needed to go out, or my cell phone bill. And I did have a supportive mom. So actually, I think she still paid my cell phone bill. So there were some things she still paid for while I was in college, which was a huge help. But everything else, when it came to like clothes, going out, a lot of things that she couldn't necessarily do at the time, I was able to do. But I was also able to discern like that wasn't that important. My friends also didn't have a lot of money. So that helps. Like, when everyone around you is kind of like broke, you don't necessarily have room to spend money on a lot of things. So we kept it really just like low profile. And it's funny because I didn't realize why I was saving. So even like my freshman and sophomore year while I was working, it's not like I had a specific goal in mind, like, oh, I knew I wanted to buy something when I graduated. I didn't know I wanted to buy something until I was like in my senior year. But again, it's just like being prepared and wanting to have something. It gave me that drive. And I loved seeing my bank account increase. So like every check where I was able to put in $1,000, $1,500, seeing that grow over time really motivated me. So while maybe someone else was motivated by the nice clothes and going and eating at expensive places, like I loved seeing my savings account grow. When you get to that point where now your money goals are like exciting you, like you love seeing your debt go down and you love seeing your savings increase, like that to me is a gold mine because it really gives you that internal motivation to keep at it.
Yeah. Did your friends do similar things? Like, did you surround yourself with people that had similar ideals, or were you not really talking about money at that time? You were just kind of focused on your own thing?
Well, the good thing about it is I had like a very small group of friends. So like I had like a one best friend that's still my best friend today. I had my boyfriend then who's not my husband. And then of course I had other people that I hung out with, but there wasn't really much room to be influenced by other people's behavior. So maybe if I was quote unquote more popular and I had a lot of friends and reasons to go out more, it maybe would have maybe affected how I spent my money. But I was really simple. I liked hanging out with my small circle and we just got each other. There's no reason for me to try and pretend or be something I wasn't or to try and impress them. They know who I was. I knew who they were. So we really honestly didn't even talk about money. They knew that I was always good at saving, but in general, I think just having actually a small circle helped during those years. Because in college, you're very impressionable. You will get more influence to do things. And I didn't really have that pressure.
Gotcha. I think it's really cool when you can create an environment around you that is already inherently positive so that you don't have to worry about the distractions of like heading down the wrong road. So it sounds pretty cool. And then you were able to purchase a house right out of college. Not only were you a saver, but you were a pretty big saver if you were able to have a down payment ready and decide you want to do it. Can you talk us through what went into you wanting to get a house right out of college? And you said you didn't have goals your freshman and sophomore year, but this had to become a goal at some point. And then you said it's a great financial decision even to this day.
Yeah. So my grandmother ended up buying a 3-family house in the Fort Greene area. Fort Greene, Brooklyn, by the way. And so now it's the place to live. It's so expensive to live there. But back when she bought it, it wasn't really the place to be. And she just wanted a home. She just wanted somewhere to live. She wanted a piece of the American pie and she was able to do it. And I realized quickly throughout college, the gentrification started to happen in the area of Brooklyn where the property prices were increasing so much. And I was like, oh my gosh, by the time I was of age to realize it, my grandmother's house had appreciated so much. So I said to myself, wow, if she was able to do that and she didn't even care about the real estate market, I, again, should be able to do something. That's when I had that realization going into my senior year in college. So I started to look for stuff and I couldn't afford anything at the time in the area I wanted to live in Brooklyn. So like Bed-Stuy, Fort Greene. And I said to myself, if I can't afford something here, maybe I need to go outside the city. Maybe I'll look in New Jersey. And I was getting discouraged. But then luckily I saw this advertisement for pre-construction condos in Dumbo. And again, I grew up maybe for the most part 10 minutes from Dumbo because I was in Fort Greene, so not that far away. But I had no idea what it was because this was not, again, the Dumbo that it is today, where it's probably one of the most expensive places to own real estate in Brooklyn.
I never knew that Dumbo was an acronym for something either. So can you tell us again what it stands for?
Sure. It stands for Down Under the Manhattan Bridge Overpass. So it's right under the Manhattan Bridge. And when I went there to see what this new pre-construction condo was all about, there was like nothing there. There was no park. Like now it's all built up with a beautiful Brooklyn Bridge Park and all these amenities. It's right on the water. But when I went there initially, there was really nothing. It was just like this sales office showing what this building could be and what this neighborhood could be. And it appealed to me because I said, wow, they're studio apartments. So they range from like studio apartments to the penthouse. And the studio apartment was the cheapest thing, obviously, and the smallest place. And I said, well, if I can't afford the $800,000 home in Fort Greene or Bed-Stuy, but maybe I can afford this $300,000 condo. So that price point, even though it was still a lot of money for me, it was not as much as what I was looking at. And because it was pre-construction, it wasn't going to be as expensive, one, as if it was already built. And then two, you only needed to put down 10% to secure the condo. So 10% to secure it. And then upon completion, when you're getting the mortgage, they would need the additional 10%. So all these factors help because not like I needed everything up front. I needed that 10%, which I had most of it or part of it. And my mom, thank God, she also had saved and she gifted me a portion of the down payment too. So another reason why I just look back and think, wow, look at all the things that my mom was able to do as a person coming here with nothing to be able to gift her daughter money to help with her first home, something that she couldn't do for herself was amazing. So with that and needing to wait 2 years for this to be built, I was able to work. So I graduated from college. So I put down the 10% upon graduation. Then for 2 years, it was being built. So I had that time to save the additional 10% and closing costs. By the time it was finished, I had the money. The market was still at that time really great. And when I closed on it, it actually was worth more than what I had went into contract with. And to this day, so that was a while ago, it's worth way more than what I bought it for. And I always say like this, that's the best investment I had or have done because now it's something where I literally feel like I could pass it down to my kids. My kids can live there if they needed a starting point for when they graduate from school. So for me, it's one of my proudest moments in general.
That is unbelievable. You had the foresight because you saw the gentrification happening around you, but it's one of those things where we can never really tell the future of what's going to happen. Like the housing market crash of 2008, but you were able to hold on, keep it during that time, and things bounced back. Just even knowing and thinking about this is something for the long term and weathering the storm of whatever's going on around you because you believe in the overall value of this place is something that is really speaks to your financial knowledge and your ability to create a plan. Okay, so now let's talk about this breakdown that you had because things are going great. You purchased this home, life is okay, you're married now, and you're heading home from work, 4 hours, breakdown happens. Unpack that for us.
Sure. When I had graduated, the same company I interned for, I graduated and started to work for. But even then, I said, I'm not working here past 30. I'm going to be my own boss. I don't want to like work in the office all my life. I'd rather do my own thing.
You know what your own thing was then?
Not really. I just knew I wanted to be free. I was always a free spirit. And I just felt like I shouldn't be confined to an office or someone telling me what to do. I was always creative. And again, I didn't even really know what it was I wanted to do. I just wanted to do whatever it is I chose to do. But then I started working, making good money, and I tried a couple things, but it never worked out. So I had like an online magazine. I even tried the vending machine business, anything to like side hustle while I was working to see if it could be the thing I could start doing and making money from doing. So none of those things really panned out. I even got my real estate license. I was like, oh, maybe I'll be like a real estate person, like sell homes or rent out apartments. I quickly realized I didn't like doing that either. And so I got into this, not really a funk, but like a sleepwalking phase of my life where I said, well, I guess I will have to work forever because it looks like everyone needs to work. What else can I do that's going to bring in money and allow me to quit this job? And so it wasn't until that car ride where it took me a longer time than usual to get home that I said to myself, I cannot do this anymore. And it wasn't necessarily the commute because I could get a job closer to where I live. It was more of realizing that I had missed out on that point. So this whole dream of not working past 30, I missed that because now I was 31, I was pregnant. And I said, are you going to work another 30 years doing this when you know you're not completely happy? Everything kind of came to a head. And I always think that sometimes that needs to happen because a lot of people may be unhappy or they're not living their full potential or not doing what they should be doing. And it's okay. You kind of like just chug along because you can bear it. But at some point, it becomes unbearable. And so for me, that was that point. And it forced me to then look into other options and to be more inquisitive and open my eyes a bit. And so because of that, I kind of fell down this rabbit hole of personal finance and finding out that there were people who were regular people, like saving and investing their money. So it wasn't that they were already millionaires, but they were teachers. Some of them made good money and they were just able to save a lot of it. And then in 10, 15 years, they were able to retire early or reach financial independence. So I said to myself, I'm sure that I can figure out a way where in the worst case scenario, maybe I can't quit my job in 2 years, but I'm saving and investing to a point where at least I won't have to work until I'm 65. And then when I say work, I don't mean I'm not going to never work again. It's more of I'm just choosing to do what I want to do for work and I'm not dependent on a paycheck from someone else.
I really like this idea. So based on what I know, you're about 5 years away from your journey to launch, right?
And that's the funny thing. When I initially started Journey to Launch, when I was, I believe, 33. So I was like 33 when I officially started the blog. And I made this declaration that I was going to reach financial independence and retire from my corporate job at 40. So that was in 7 years. And so it's 2 years later. And since starting Journey to Launch, my goals and my course to financial independence has changed because now I've started this business and this platform where like it's my passion. It's what I love. And so technically there are a couple ways. I don't think there's a one size fits all or like just one steadfast path. So depending on what I want to do and how I want to do it, potentially I can reach it quicker or it will take me longer because I'm really considering following my passions with Journey to Launch for a bit. So that might require me to step away from the corporate America job for a bit to explore what this is like. And perhaps this will accelerate my journey, which will be awesome because I'm working and doing what I love. So usually when that happens and you're good at something, you reap the rewards for that. Or it can just take me longer, which is totally fine, but at least I'm enjoying the everyday life. It's funny because I haven't talked about it or gone into detail that much yet. I will start doing that a bit more on my platform and on my podcast. But because I've started this journey to financial independence, it's put me in such a better place to make a decision like that versus if I never would have started.
Yeah, and I just think maybe it can be accelerated. So it's like, oh, this could happen before 40, or maybe it gets stressed out. The main point there is that it's all about planning and deciding. And so creating what this plan is that was going to get you to that point by 40, even if that's no longer the plan. How did you get the dates and the numbers and know that these things would work? And you're also saying that it doesn't mean that I'm never going to work again when I reach this point of financial independence. Have you set it up in such a way that I need X number of dollars to supplement what I've saved up in order to be financially independent? So I don't need to work to earn six figures anymore. I only need to work to earn significantly less than that. And I supplement the rest of that my savings that I've been building up to this point. And so that's why I am financially free. Is that how financial independence works?
Yeah. So if someone's looking at, okay, what would it take for me to be financially independent? So that means in the broad sense of terms that you don't have to actively work for money again. You have enough investments saved up that it can support your lifestyle. But that could look different for a lot of people. So in my case, I am married. I have kids. I have a mortgage. So there's a lot going on there. And because of that, it's also kind of helpful because in my financial independence plan, my husband actually still works. So he doesn't necessarily want to quit his job. He likes what he does. It's convenient for him. It gives him purpose. And so with that said, the goal is to have a certain amount saved and invested where we can literally put our investments on autopilot. And if we never contributed it to again, it will be fine. So that's one of the goals. The other goal is to pay off our mortgage. We live in New York City. The mortgage is a high part of our expenses when you look at like the total expenses that we have. And so when I talk about financial independence, it really means we'd be able to sustain ourselves on my husband's income, and he's a teacher, but also from our investments. And if we never have to touch our investments because we've paid off our mortgage and we ratcheted down our expenses to what's comfortable for us, then great. I always say that the journey and what your financial independence looks like is totally different. Some people, it means for them that they're really never ever working again. So they're just going to live off their investments for the rest of their lives, which is totally fine. Some people, it still involves a spouse working, but the other spouse doesn't need to work anymore because they have enough investments saved up or they paid off all their debt. And so it can look different for everyone. But in my case, yes, it does mean that for the most part, I wouldn't need to have to actively work. So meaning if I never brought home another penny, my husband and my 3 kids and I, we would be okay. But that most likely won't be the end point because I love to work. I want to bring in money to the household. It's just that I don't want it to be dependent on a job or a check from someone else to do that.
Yeah, I think it'll be an amazing feeling to be able to earn freely instead of earn to be able to meet this goal or that goal. To say, like you said, I wake up every day and I work because I enjoy working, and the monetary income is not because I need it. It's because there's value for what I'm providing and I should earn an income for that. It's not tied to this is a means to an end. And I think that's the thing that's really cool about the financial independence. That's real independence, is doing something because you want to, not because you have to.
Right. Like the overall goal is just to have options. And I wrote an article about this and I talk about this a lot where the goal of financial independence, I think everyone is on this, whether they know it or not. This financial independence movement. I think everyone should be on this path. And not to say again that you're never going to work again, because some people, like when they hear the FIRE movement, they think, well, that's not for me. Who's trying to save 50% of their income? And I don't want to do that. And I don't want to retire. So I love my job. And those are all fine. But I think overall, you just want to have the options to do that if you choose to. So if you wake up one day or your family situation changes, so like in my case, I have 3 kids now. When I first started this journey, I had 1 kid. So my goals for wanting to reach this are a bit different. I want to spend more time with them when they're a bit older. I want to be able to have more options to do things with them. And I think for everyone, we all want the option and ability to spend time with the people we love, do what we love, and of course, be a great, effective member of society, someone who's contributing to this. So why wouldn't you want to be on this path? And it doesn't mean that you need to reach it in 2 years, 5 years. Like there's some people who are aggressively saving because they're earning a lot of money, or they are spending a very little because they're very frugal. It all depends on what works for you. But I think when you start the journey, you put yourself in a better position than if you didn't start. When I started, we weren't as intentional with our saving and investing. But because starting this journey now, we saved and invested a lot of money to the point where now I have the option where I could step away from my corporate job for a couple of years if I chose to, or I could pursue Journey to Launch more aggressively. So I love that. And I think that's why I want to spread this message to everyone, because I really do feel like no matter what, it puts you on a better path than you would have been on if you didn't start it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really enjoyed about your story was you break down on your site what your savings plan was for what your savings plan is for this year. And there was no bells or whistles to it. And I think so frequently people think, oh, financial independence, I got to hit the lottery. I got to find this great way to come up. I got to find a way to flip this, that, or, there's always this kind of like get rich quick scheme tied to what people think they need to do to get wealthy. And the way you lay your plan out on your site, it's doing the normal things that are readily available to most people, maxing out your 401k, maxing out 403b. There was no amazing, oh my goodness, I'm going to magically show up with this 50k. It's like, I'm going to use the income that I'm earning and I'm going to save it in the vehicles that are available to me, which also is like reducing my taxable income. And ta-da, here's the way me and my husband are going to say, is it like 83,000 or something?
So in 2016, it was 85. And then in 2017, it was about the same amount. So altogether, it was about 169,000 that we saved and invested. And about half of that was in our pre-tax retirement accounts. So it's not like we just like had that after-tax money to save in cash. A lot of that was through being tax efficient. So investing in pre-tax retirement accounts, investing in the Roth IRAs, and then obviously investing some of our money in other places like the 529 account and like in index funds. So like you said, most of these vehicles are available to everyone. And what I like to stress is that your number doesn't have to be as big as mine, right? It's all relative to what you're able to do on your income and your expenses. So even if it is just you're saving more than 3%, 10% more than you did last year, that's a win. That's better than not saving and investing at all. So just do what you can, but be smart about it.
For sure. So then with all these investments that you have, like you said, you have the retirement accounts. Those are usually managed by the employer's financial person, but you're talking about doing index investing, outside plans, and saving in investment accounts outside of that. So do you have like a financial planner or advisor or something that helps you organize all this, or have you taken on this role solo?
I do not have a financial advisor. So the way I invest, I just try to keep it simple. So I do just index investing, which just follows the market. And in terms of selecting investments to where our 401k and my husband's 403b and 457 plan, it's choosing the lowest ratio with the best return. So no financial planner yet. I don't completely write it off. I see the benefit in having one. But for me right now, the stage we are, it's really simple and kind of automatic at this point. So we're not doing it. The one thing I did do was I hired a accountant to do my taxes. So someone to prepare my taxes last year and who's going to help sit down and walk me through just making sure that we are being efficient with our taxes, because I want to make sure that we're not going to owe too much or we're saving in the right vehicles that make sense. So I appreciate the expertise and I do it when I feel like it's the best point for us. So at this point, a tax person, I think for us is like the best use of our money. And then who knows, maybe in the future when I feel like we need it or if we do need it, I'll hire a planner.
I love when you said that. It's so simple. I think you have listeners on the other end that are going, oh my God, how is she doing this? What do you say to the person that's on the other end right now that is living paycheck to paycheck, that can't figure out the step number one to saving, about how much work goes into getting yourself first financially organized so that you are able to do this, so that you can get to a point where you can say, oh, it's really simple to invest because I just automated and it works out pretty easily. I just use indexes. So if you're at like step number one and you don't want to hire someone to help you or hold you accountable, then what do you do?
Step number one is just figuring out your budget or spending plan because you can't save or invest numbers that you don't know. So I think just figuring out what's coming in, income versus what's going out, and optimizing that. So a budget, a spending plan, I think needs to be in place for a lot of people. Now, how strict you are with it, I think depends on how advanced you are. So we have a budget, but in the beginning, I checked it like every day. I don't check it every day anymore. But if I'm working as a money coach and I'm helping someone or I'm advising someone how they start, I'd say start with a budget. Also, get a take on what your overall financial picture is. So first step is to get out of debt, but I don't believe you should not invest until you get out of debt. I do believe you should start investing, and it doesn't need to be complicated in the sense where now you need to get a broker and pay someone to do this for you. As long as you are making a plan to pay off debt, you have a debt payoff plan, but you're also investing in, say you work at a job, you're investing up to your 401k match. Or if you don't have a match, you're at least doing what you can there for the pre-tax benefits, and then you're opening up a Roth IRA every year. The simple stuff is to start with what's available to you right now. So again, the budget is important, knowing what's going in and going out. If you have debt, focusing in on what's your debt payoff strategy and plan. But then also, if you have access to a 401k or a 403b plan through your job where it automatically will take money out, start increasing that or start putting money towards that. And then also look at a Roth IRA because that's another great diversification of how you invest.
Yes, I love all of that advice. It's the simple things. I think everyone is always looking for the quick way to do it, the instant overnight success, or there's got to be some secret that I don't know. And it's really just you wake up every day and you brush your teeth, and that's how you don't get cavities. And starting with these little things, the budget, the Roth IRA, the things that are readily available to you, and not thinking that there's more to the story than just start saving is where you really get to creating this point and, creating the breathing room and then saying like, okay, what's the next steps to this strategy? It has been so wonderful chatting with you. Oh, I know what else we need to talk about. Children. So you have 3 kids. You're still making this commute on a regular basis. You're running another business. You have your own podcast. You're super mom. How do you juggle it all? How do you figure it all out? And oh, by the way, kids are expensive. Like, how the heck are you saving $100 and some odd $1,000 every year? Tell us how to be a badass mom like you.
So I would say I definitely have a support network. I have help. So I'm not a single mom doing this, which my mom was a single mom, so I don't even know how she did it. But my husband puts in the equal amount of work in the household and with the kids. So that's very helpful. And we have help. So I have family that helps out. I have my mom, his mom's here. I have my aunt who actually helps. So my kids are pretty young, 4, 2, and 3 months old. And so while the older ones in school, we have help with the younger ones. Again, it takes a village almost, because if I was doing this for myself, then this would not be possible to work full time, have the commute, and then to do Journey to Launch. Also, I think for me, it's been a buildup. So I started having kids when, I was a little older. I know that I'm still not old, but I was 31. And so in my 20s, I worked in corporate America. I built up my income to a point where it could sustain us. My husband's built up his income to where we're able to save and invest that much. And so I do think it's looking at someone's own personal journey, because maybe if you start having kids earlier, it's maybe harder depending on the kind of field you're in, to the income you're making, to be able to save or invest that much. Also, when it comes to our kids, we don't spend a lot of money outside of the necessities. So yes, childcare, paying my aunt who helps us watch them, I need to do that. In terms of clothes, we don't spend a lot of money on clothes. Activities we spend money on, but we try to be smart about that. They can't do everything, but we want them to do at least some things. And so it's just being really selective and conscious about how you're spending. And it's not easy. There are many times where I'm just like, I don't know if I can do this tomorrow. It's a lot. And so it's taking that break, asking for help when you need it, and being kind to yourself. So again, don't look at my story and say, oh my gosh, now I need to go out and save half of my check, right? You build up to that. It's the journey. You do what you can.
Yeah, I think it's really important, though someone's story is inspiring and it's been incredibly inspiring just talking to you today, that, yeah, everyone's story is their own unique story and you need to customize it to meet your needs. You don't need to mimic exactly what Jamila's doing. You don't need to mimic exactly what I'm doing. You need to create your own story and you pull little pieces of a nugget that you heard here that you loved and a nugget that you hear on some other episode that you love. And you put those things together and you create what is your own unique story so that you can live your best life and reach that financial independence in a way that is realistic and comfortable and freeing for you.
Right.
Jamila, thanks so much for being on the show. We are now reaching our final sprint. And so these are rapid fire questions that you answer how you see fit. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
You have $20 in your pocket right now. What do you spend it on?
A mojito.
Ooh, a mojito. That's it. Well, I guess in New York City, it could definitely cost $20 for just one mojito.
Yeah. Well, I'd go happy hour and get like 2 or 3.
Okay, perfect. Best money habit?
Making savings automatic.
Yes. Worst money habit?
I don't know. Worst money habit? Maybe not checking my budget as often. I think I need to go back to actually checking my budget more often than I do now.
Okay, I like it. Something you do for fun that doesn't cost anything?
Hang out at home on my back deck with my husband and kids.
I like it. Aki and sawfish or jerk chicken?
Oh, Aki and sawfish.
Ooh, I love it. That's what I'm thinking too. All right. And last but not least, can you share with us one thing you would like to improve about your finances in the upcoming year?
I'd like to, when it comes to Journey to Launch, be more efficient and get some systems in place to really turn this into a profitable business. And so I'm looking forward to this year being that year to do that.
Yes. So what's the action item to help you actually make sure you get there?
I'm reading the book Profit First. I actually read part of it and it's like a way to implement how to spend money in your business. And so I just want to be able to implement those systems. So I'm working on implementing what he has said in the book.
Okay. I like it. Thanks so much for being on the show. You have finished the final sprint, made it to the podium. You are a winner at life. And now it is time to stand on a podium and have your time to shine. So tell us a little bit about what projects you have going on, how we can support you, where we can find you. We want to be your team behind the scenes.
Sure. So you can find me at journeytolaunch.com. That's my website. You can also check out my podcast, Journey to Launch. It's anywhere you listen to podcasts. So Apple Podcasts, Android, wherever you're listening to this amazing podcast, you can find it. I'm also on all social media as Journey to Launch. So Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I love connecting and talking with people. And if you want, you can also join my Facebook community. I love to connect more with people there. That's journeytolaunch.com/community, and it will take you to my Facebook group.
Jamila, thanks so much for being on the show today. This has been an awesome episode.
Thanks so much, Lauren, for having me.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Jamila's money memoir. She had such an inspiring story and is a great example of how hard work really does pay off. After seeing the example her mother set for her, she worked hard throughout college and had the foresight to see when a good investment opportunity was in front of her. Our word of the day today, financial independence. Jamila's story centers around working toward this goal. I love the way she described financial independence not meaning everything for the same person and not meaning that you never have to work again. It just means you don't have to depend on that paycheck or that job in order to live. It gives you the freedom to choose what you want to do in life. And it doesn't look the same for everyone. We each have our own unique things we're trying to accomplish. And it's important that we determine what our goals are, not someone else's. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you found this episode worth listening to. If you have financial questions, suggestions for guests, or would like to share your own money memoir, don't hesitate to contact us at our website, worth-listening.com.